They proclaim me to be the koi fish leaping over the dragon gate. Yet, all I desire is to blow bubbles at the bottom of the water. My name is Tan Yen. On the day I was discovered by my biological parents, I was at a small noodle shop in the urban village. I was slurping up a bowl of beef noodles priced at 8 yuan, with a few glistening droplets of oil floating atop the broth. Two men, clad in suits that exuded an air of opulence, stood there with utmost reverence. They addressed me as second young miss, while standing beside the greasy plastic table. The slurping sounds in the noodle shop ceased abruptly. The chopsticks of a burly man at the adjacent table clumsily dropped the marinated egg back into his bowl with a resounding thud. "Your father is Mr. Shen Baizhou," the leading man spoke in a hushed tone, as if afraid to disturb something delicate. "Madam, misses you dearly." That name, even the old Wang selling pirated DVDs at the entrance of the urban village recognizes. The local tycoon, a frequent figure in the news, presides over a vast commercial empire. I swallowed the last mouthful of noodles, leaving not a drop of broth behind. "Oh," I wiped my mouth. "You must have mistaken me for someone else. My name is Tan Yen." The man handed me a document, a thick paternity test report, stamped with a vivid red seal, resembling a decree of fate. I did not even glance at it. "Very well." I stood up, grasping my well-worn canvas bag, its edges frayed from 5 years of use. "Let us proceed." The car that came to fetch me was understated to an extraordinary degree, yet the moment the door closed, it sealed off all the clamor and bustle from the outside world. Inside, the air was infused with a blend of leather and an expensive scented incense. Outside the car window, the drab buildings of the urban village receded swiftly, akin to a faded old film reel. My new home awaited me in the most luxurious hillside villa area of the city. The vehicle entered through the intricately designed iron gate, traversing a meticulously manicured lawn, halting before a brightly lit, palace-like white edifice. The brilliance of the crystal chandelier stung my eyes slightly. A poised middle-aged couple stood at the door, the woman's well-maintained visage glistening with tears as she nearly lunged forward to embrace me, exclaiming, "My child, mother has finally found you." Shen Baizhou, my biological father, lingered a short distance behind, his gaze a tempest of emotions, excitement, scrutiny, and a hint of something I could not decipher. Weariness? My body stiffened slightly, allowing her to hold me. The air was saturated with the sense of high-end perfume and exquisite wood. The atmosphere felt so foreign that it was suffocating. I have become the long-lost second young lady of the Shen family. The Shen household is vast and bustling with numerous inhabitants. I have an elder brother, Shen Yuhua, who is 5 years my senior and has already ascended to the core of the family business, an undisputed heir. His gaze upon me is akin to that of someone scrutinizing a flawed artifact suddenly placed on display, polite yet distant, imbued with an air of condescension. There is also a younger sister, Shen Chiyue, who is a year my junior. It is said that she was the child mistakenly taken in my absence, and despite my return, she remains in the family as an adopted daughter. She is exquisitely beautiful, resembling a doll in a shop window, adept at playing the piano and performing graceful ballet. She calls me Sister Yen Yen, her voice sweet to the point of being cloying, yet her eyes conceal a sharpness. My mother, Miss Tsin Shui, seems eager to compensate for the 2 decades of absence in a single night. "Yen Yen, look at the room Mom has prepared for you. Do you like it?" Upon pushing open the heavy door, I was nearly blinded by the dazzling sight. A grand princess bed adorned with layers of lace canopies, walls painted in pastel shades, and an entire wall of floor-to-ceiling wardrobes filled with dresses from brands I couldn't name but recognized as extravagant. The vanity was cluttered with an array of skincare and makeup products, shimmering in the light, as if I had stumbled into the set of a young girl's comic. "It's quite nice," I replied dryly. "Tomorrow, Mom will take you shopping. We'll make up for everything you've missed." Tsin Shui exclaimed with enthusiasm. "We'll hire the best stylist to give you a proper makeover. With your natural beauty, you'll surely outshine Chiyue." At that moment, Shen Chiyue, who stood nearby, seemed to falter, her sweet smile momentarily frozen. "No need, Mom." I tossed my old canvas bag onto the thickly carpeted floor. "I'm perfectly fine as I am, comfortable." Tsin Shui was taken aback, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Are you still upset with your mother?" "I truly didn't mean to." I quickly interrupted. "It's just that I'm lazy." "Laziness?" She clearly struggled to grasp the weight of that term within the context of the Shen family. "Shen Baizhou, my father, was quite forthright regarding my future. Since you've returned, you must learn the family rules and understand your responsibilities." In the study, he sat behind an expansive mahogany desk, tapping his fingers rhythmically on the surface. You will accompany your brother to the company to familiarize yourself with the environment, starting from the ground up. Yuhua, take her along. Shun Yuhua, standing to the side in a sharply tailored suit, nodded impassively. Understood, father. No need, dad. As I sank into the lavish leather sofa opposite him, I felt myself sinking deeper into its plush embrace. I have little interest in the company. Shun Baijiu's fingers paused mid-tap, his piercing gaze sweeping over me like a searchlight. No interest? Then, what do you find engaging? I pondered for a moment before responding earnestly, sleeping, basking in the sun, daydreaming, reading novels, playing games, and indulging in delicious food, especially if it's served to me. An eerie silence enveloped the study. Shin Yuhua's lips seemed to twitch, as though he were valiantly suppressing a reaction. Shun Baijiu's expression darkened. Tan Yan, a daughter of the Shin family, cannot be a useless burden. Dad, I shifted into a more comfortable position on the sofa. Being a burden isn't so bad. It doesn't trouble anyone and allows for a leisurely life. Perhaps you see my return as a way to enhance the family's biodiversity? Like a salted fish, perhaps? You. Shun Baijiu slammed his hand on the desk in frustration. Calm down, Dad. Shun Yuhua interjected, his tone steady. She just returned and may need time to adjust. Let's take it slow. He turned to me, his expression devoid of warmth. Tomorrow morning at 9, the driver will be waiting for you at the door. Don't be late. The following morning at 9, I lay in my enormous, soft princess bed, enveloped in a deep slumber. A tentative knock echoed from outside. The voice of the aunt assigned to care for me. Second miss? Second miss? It's time to wake up. The eldest master is waiting for you downstairs. I rolled over, burying my head under the covers. Tell him I've passed away. Burn some paper for me. The corridor fell silent. After about 10 minutes, the knocking resumed, this time with an undeniable insistence. Tan Yan, open the door. It was Shun Yuhua's voice, cold as ice, struggling to rise. I groggily pulled back the door a crack, my hair in disarray. Shun Yuhua stood outside, impeccably dressed in a perfectly tailored dark gray suit, resembling a moving advertisement for luxury. He frowned, surveying my wrinkled pajamas and tousled hair, his expression a mix of disdain. You have 10 minutes to wash up and come downstairs, he commanded. Brother, I rubbed my eyes and stifled a yawn. Let us discuss something. You see, the household has no shortage of food for me, and the company doesn't particularly need me as a worker. Why must we endure this mutual torment? It would be beneficial for both of us. Shin Yuhua's brows knitted together in irritation. Father's words are commands. The Shin family does not support idlers. Then why not transfer my household registration out? I assure you I will only claim the legally required minimum for living expenses, not a penny more from the Shun family. I'll return to my urban village and continue enjoying my $8 beef noodles. Let us part ways amicably. Shin Yuhua appeared taken aback by my audaciousness. Seemingly unaccustomed to such shamelessness, he inhaled deeply, as if suppressing a tempest of rage. By 9:30, I expect to see you in the garage. Otherwise, you will face the consequences. With that, he turned on his heel, his back radiating an icy chill. I slammed the door shut. Consequences? Would he dock my allowance? I would welcome that. Would he throw me out? That would be a blessing. 10 minutes later, I donned the simplest t-shirt and jeans, hastily tied my hair back, grabbed my old canvas bag, and sauntered down the stairs. In the dining room, Shun Baijiu, Sun Shuyi, and Shin Chiyue were engaged in breakfast. The long table was laden with exquisite dishes, silverware gleaming in the light. Shin Chiyue, clad in a Chanel ensemble, sipped her milk with an elegance reminiscent of a painting. Upon seeing me, she offered a flawless smile. Sister Yan Yan, good morning. Brother has already left for the company. He said he wouldn't wait for you. Sun Shuyi looked worried. Yan Yan, why did you come down dressed like that? Quickly, change into something appropriate before having breakfast, and then go to the company to find your brother. Shun Baijiu set down his utensils with a sharp clatter, his expression dark enough to draw water. This is unacceptable. Morning. I pulled out a chair and sat down, disregarding their stares, and picked up a croissant that appeared fluffy and soft. I'm not going to the company. It's uninteresting. What did you say? Shun Baijiu's voice rose an octave. I said, I'm not going to the company. I took a generous bite of the croissant, savoring its superior taste compared to the $5 version downstairs. Mom, Dad, just do me a favor and let me be. Spare my brother too. If you must assign me some tasks. I glanced around the opulent dining room, my gaze landing on the uniformed aunts standing in the corner. Perhaps I could be responsible for sampling the pastries they prepare? I excel at that. Or maybe I could feed the koi in the garden. They seem rather hungry. An eerie silence ensued, punctuated only by the sound of me chewing on the croissant. Shun Baizhou's chest heaved with rage, his finger trembling as he pointed at me. You are truly a hopeless case. Dad, please don't be upset. Shen Qiue quickly set down her milk, her voice as sweet as syrup. Sister Yan has just returned and isn't yet accustomed to our pace. We can teach her slowly. She turned to me, her gaze earnest. The company is genuinely fascinating. There is so much to learn. Look at me. I'm currently learning to manage a small project with brother. It's exhausting but fulfilling. I swallowed the last bite of my croissant, brushed off the crumbs from my hands, and stood up. Well, good luck with that. I'm heading back to my room for some more sleep. I was up reading until 3 last night. As I walked out of the lavish, cold dining room, leaving Shen Baizhou on the brink of an explosive outburst and Xin Shui on the verge of tears, I carried my old canvas bag and shuffled away in my slippers. Behind me, I could hear Shen Baizhou's low, restrained growl. Keep a close watch on her. She must not be allowed to continue her reckless antics. My declaration of being a-salted fishes stirred a tempest within the Shen family. The news of the second Miss Shen being a hopeless case spread like wildfire, swiftly taking flight amongst the so-called upper echelons of society. Lady Cinshui, in her deep sorrow, believes that 2 decades of neglect have warped my character, and she has become increasingly relentless in her attempts to correct me. She engaged an etiquette instructor to teach me the art of walking gracefully, dining elegantly, and smiling charmingly. Clad in a suffocatingly tight dress and towering heels, I waddled under the instructor's commands of chest out, stomach in, and chin up, resembling an awkward penguin. During smile practice, my face felt frozen. Miss, your gaze should be gentle, and the curve of your lips must be just right, the instructor, a meticulous English butler in his 50s, demonstrated personally. I strained to lift the corners of my mouth, feeling as if my face were cramping. Enough, dear instructor. I collapsed onto the expensive velvet sofa, rubbing my face. I fear I am simply not cut out to be a socialite. My eyes, when softened, appear as if I have just awakened, and forcing a smile risks making me look like a victim of facial nerve paralysis. Let us spare each other the torment, shall we? A crack appeared in the instructor's stern visage, perhaps having never encountered such an obstinate pupil before. Thus concluded the etiquette lessons. Next came the talent classes. Shen Qiue served as the ready example. In the piano room, she played Chopin with fluidity. In the dance studio, she performed Swan Lake with elegance. Lady Cinshui, brimming with hope, inquired, Yan, do you prefer piano or ballet? Perhaps oil painting? Or the violin? I gazed at the expensive Steinway and replied earnestly, Mother. The only instrument I can play is the plastic keyboard I had as a child, and I can only poke it with one finger to produce 2 tigers. The light in Lady Cin's eyes dimmed. What about singing? Well, I could sing off-key enough to turn the national anthem into a winding mountain road, I added. And dancing is out of the question. I can hardly manage a coordinated routine for calisthenics. Ultimately, the talent class transformed into an appreciation session. All I needed to do was sit there, listen to Shen Qiue play and dance, and applaud at appropriate intervals. This I was accustomed to, after all. I had previously clapped at a noodle shop while watching television when something remarkable occurred. After each performance, Shen Qiue would gaze at me with her big, watery eyes, asking, Sister Yan, how was I? Was there anything I could improve upon? Each time, I would sincerely clap, exclaiming, absolutely wonderful. Perfect. A celestial melody. Such a dance should only exist in the heavens. My vocabulary was limited, but my emotions were abundant. Gradually, the smile on Shen Qiue's face became somewhat strained. On the other hand, Shen Baizhou did not relent. He ceased to force me to sit at the company, but began assigning me tasks. One such task was a market research report on a new brand under the group, due the following Monday. He tossed a thick stack of materials onto my desk. I flipped through it, filled with dense data and analyses. Dad, I looked up at him. I might not be very good at this. Not good? Just learn. Shen Baizhou insisted. Children of the Shen family do not have the luxury of saying they cannot. I sighed. All right then. On Monday morning, Shen Baizhou awaited me in his study. Sporting dark circles from staying up late reading novels, I handed him an A4 sheet. It bore a single line of bold text. Printed clearly, core conclusion of market research report. The primary demand of the target demographic, urban women aged 18 to 25, is high cost-effectiveness, appealing aesthetics, and swift delivery. Recommendations: lower prices, Engage popular celebrities for endorsements. Optimize logistics.
Done.
Shun Baijiu held the paper, scrutinizing it for a full minute. He looked up at me, his expression complex. Is this what you produced after several days of effort? I nodded, stifling a yawn. As long as the core demands are captured, the details and data can be analyzed more thoroughly by your many elite subordinates. Consider this a mere spark to ignite inspiration? Shun Baijiu slammed the paper onto the table. Fuming, you are being opportunistic. This is utterly perfunctory. Dad, I replied innocently, you only said to submit the report, not the word count. My conclusion is quite incisive. Isn't it? Soul-piercing? Shun Baijiu pointed toward the door, his hand trembling. Out. I fled as if granted a pardon. Outside the study, I could vaguely hear the sound of a teacup thudding heavily onto the table. Shin Chiyue's birthday banquet marked my first official appearance in the so-called upper circle since being recognized by the Shin family. Lady Tsin, as if facing a formidable adversary, began preparations for my gown, jewelry, and makeup a week in advance. The banquet hall was filled with the fragrance of fine perfumes, cigars, and the mingled scent of wealth, illuminated by the dazzling brilliance of crystal chandeliers. Dressed in a light blue gown, laden with rhinestones, forcibly donned upon me by Lady Tsin, I felt as though I were encased in a luxurious cocoon, utterly uncomfortable. The diamond necklace around my neck weighed heavily, constricting my breath. Shin Chiyue was undoubtedly the star of the evening. Adorned in a custom pink tulle gown, she resembled a budding pink rose, surrounded by admirers who showered her with praise and blessings. After performing a challenging piano piece, she received thunderous applause. Lady Tsin nudged me, whispering, Yan, why not play a piece as well? Something simpler would suffice. Mother knows you. Mother, I interjected softly, but clearly in the momentary lull. I truly cannot. To approach the piano keys would be to inflict auditory pollution, disturbing the peace. Several curious glances turned my way, some tinged with disdain, others akin to Shun Baijiu's subtly warning gaze. Lady Tsin watched me anxiously. Shin Yuhuai stood a short distance away, holding a wine glass, his expression impassive, his gaze indifferent, as if watching a play in which he had no part. I understood Shin Chiyue's intentions perfectly. She aimed to humiliate me before all, solidifying my reputation as a fool to accentuate her own perfection. Gazing into her eyes, filled with anticipation and encouragement, I suddenly smiled. As for talent, I began leisurely, reaching into my old canvas bag, which stood in stark contrast to my glamorous gown. Lady Tsin, unable to resist, allowed me to retrieve my phone. Indeed, I had something. I unlocked it with ease and tapped the screen, and suddenly, a rhythmically vibrant, distinctly earthy tune resonated throughout the banquet hall, previously graced by elegant piano melodies. The vastness of the sky is my love. Beneath the rolling green mountains, flowers bloom. I held my phone aloft, cranking the volume to its maximum. The infectious melody and down-to-earth lyrics shattered the pretense of elegance within the hall. Everyone was left stunned. Shin Chiyue's sweet smile froze on her face, akin to a shattered mask. Shun Baijiu's expression darkened to that of a charred pot bottom. Lady Tsin covered her mouth, her eyes wide in disbelief. Shin Yuhuai's grip on his wine glass faltered slightly, and for the first time, a crack appeared in his eternal icy demeanor, as if struck by lightning. Oblivious to my surroundings, I swayed to the music, my movements somewhat awkward in the obstructive gown, yet my demeanor was unperturbed, even a bit exuberant. What kind of rhythm is the most swaying? What kind of voice brings the greatest joy? At this line, I deliberately paused, surveying the astonished crowd, and grinned widely. See? This is what we call talent. Grounded, resonant, everyone let loose. The atmosphere fell into a brief silence. Then, a soft chuckle erupted from an unknown corner. In quick succession, suppressed laughter rose and fell like waves. Shin Chiyue's countenance transitioned from crimson to pallid, then from pallid to a shade of green, a spectacle of emotions. Shun Baijiu's temples throbbed with tension as he abruptly cast a glance at the steward beside him, forcing out 2 words through clenched teeth. Shut it. The music came to an abrupt halt, leaving the banquet hall enveloped in an eerie silence, punctuated only by the lingering echoes of the folk tune. I nonchalantly tucked my phone back into my canvas bag, clapped my hands, and, with utmost sincerity, addressed the ashen-faced Shin Chiyue. Chiyue, happy birthday. What a festive song. So fitting for the occasion. May you thrive like the phoenix legend, radiant and enduring. Shin Chiyue bit her lip fiercely, her eyes suddenly glistening with tears, as if she bore an immense grievance. Shun Buizhou strode over, seizing my arm with a grip so fierce it was almost alarming, nearly dragging me away from the heart of the banquet hall. His voice was a low growl, yet it was as frigid as ice. Tan Yen, are you deliberately attempting to tarnish the Shen family's reputation? Father, I stumbled as he pulled me along, my arm pained, yet my expression remained innocently defiant. What are you saying? Chiyue insisted on witnessing a talent showcase. I was merely complying. This is the latest trend in square dance. Quite relatable. Wouldn't you agree? Look how joyfully everyone is laughing. The atmosphere is positively lively. Surely, it's better than an awkward silence? Get back to your room.
Now.
Immediately. Shun Buizhou's fury was palpable, nearly bursting forth. Very well, I replied swiftly, wriggling free from his grasp, lifting my skirt, and with my canvas bag slung over my shoulder. I departed from that suffocating arena of fame and fortune with a light step, not glancing back despite the myriad of scrutinizing gazes. Behind me, I faintly heard Shin Chiyue's muffled sobs and Xin Shuyi's anxious reassurances, along with Shun Buizhou's suppressed roar of indignation. From this day forth, terminate all her cards. She shall not step outside without my permission. Let her reflect on her actions. House arrest? What a delightful turn of events. I nearly burst into laughter. My confinement was akin to a blissful existence. No longer compelled to learn etiquette, hone talents, or feign interest at the company. 3 meals were delivered punctually to the doorstep of my expansive princess room. Clad in the coziest cotton pajamas, I nestled on the couch, drawing the curtains to immerse myself in binge-watching dramas, reading novels, and playing games. Whenever hunger struck, I would ring for the maid to bring me sustenance. And thirst was quenched with freshly squeezed juice. My only vexation was that Shin Chiyue seemed dissatisfied with our last encounter and began to frequently pass by my room, or kindly offer me treats she believed I might enjoy, along with newly released skincare products. Sister Yan Yan, are you still upset with me? She inquired timidly at my door, holding a delicate porcelain plate adorned with charming macarons. That day was my fault. I shouldn't have insisted on making you perform. I merely wanted you to feel included. I'm not upset. I leaned against the doorframe, not allowing her entry. In fact, I'm quite pleased. Look, I no longer have to socialize downstairs. Isn't that splendid? Yet, she hesitated, but father has suspended your cards. Do you need money? I can help. No need, I interrupted, shaking my phone. I have online banking and some savings. It's sufficient for gaming top-ups and purchasing VIP novels. Thank you. The concern etched on Shin Chiyue's face faltered. Sister, you can't continue like this. Mom and Dad are very worried about you, and so is brother. Your behavior is bound to disappoint those who care for you. Oh, I nodded. Please thank them for their concern on my behalf. Is there anything else? I have a game to attend to. I pretended to close the door.
Wait.
Shin Chiyue rushed to say, next month is Grandma's birthday. It's very important. She adores festivities and loves to see her grandchildren flourish. You can't keep avoiding this, can you? You must prepare a decent gift and make a good impression.
Grandma?
A vague image flickered in my mind. The matriarch of the Shin family, Shun Buizhou's mother, who was said to be recuperating in a tranquil sanatorium in the south and rarely returned. She was the true anchor of the Shin family, commanding respect even from Shun Buizhou. Understood, I replied dismissively, shutting the door. Outside, Shin Chiyue lingered for a moment before departing. A birthday? A gift? I raked my fingers through my hair. What a hassle. The house arrest was lifted a week before Grandma's birthday. Perhaps Shun Buizhou thought that confinement had failed to instill any sense of reflection in me, fearing I might create an even greater spectacle at the old lady's banquet. On the first day of my release, Xin Shuyi approached me with tearful eyes, cradling a velvet box. Yan Yan, this is a gift from Mom for Grandma. She opened the box to reveal a stunning jade pendant of exceptional quality, strung on a platinum chain, clearly of considerable value. You will present it to Grandma in person and say it was a special find. I gazed at the dazzling green stone, reluctant to accept it.
Mom.
Does Grandma believe in Buddhism?
Sen Shui paused.
I don't think so. Oh, I nodded. Then this trinket is merely an expensive rock to her. It holds little significance. What do you think would be appropriate, then? Since she fretted, Grandma has discerning taste. Ordinary gifts won't suffice. Chiyue has already commissioned a famous painting from abroad 6 months in advance. Your brother has also prepared something. Enough, Mom, I patted her shoulder. I'll figure out the gift myself. Don't worry about it. Figure it out? What could you possibly come up with? You've barely stepped outside. Your card has been suspended. A mountain man has his own clever schemes. I smiled mysteriously, pushing her out of the room. Shin Chiyu evidently caught wind of my intention to devise my own plan. The following afternoon, I basked in the sun by the vast artificial lake behind the villa. My second favorite spot aside from my room. The sunlight was warm, the lake shimmered, and the koi were as plump as pigs. Shin Chiyu happened to stroll by. Yen. How is the gift for Grandma coming along? She settled beside me on the bench, her tone laced with concern. Do you need help? I know several reputable antique dealers. No need. I squinted in the sun. I've got it all prepared.
Oh?
What is it? May I see it first? She pressed curiously. I opened my eyes and retrieved a palm-sized, coarse, ceramic flower pot from my canvas bag. Inside, a droopy, slightly yellowing succulent plant rested. The variety was the most common, moonstone. Shin Chiyu stared, her expression shifting from disbelief to barely suppressed laughter, ultimately morphing into a complex blend of disdain and pity. Sister, are you serious? For Grandma's birthday, the attendees will be prominent figures. Presenting this will surely elicit ridicule. What will father and brother think? One's dignity is earned, not upheld by the gifts of others, I shrugged. I think it's lovely. It's the thought that counts, after all. Shin Chiyu regarded me as if I were an irredeemable lunatic. She shook her head, rising with a tone of condescending pity. Sister, I understand your upbringing may have limited your perspective, but this is the Shun family, not a place for your whims. If you disregard your own reputation, you must at least consider the family's image. Well, do as you wish. With an elegant turn, she departed, her footsteps light, her back radiating a sense of victorious delight. I looked down at the somewhat awkwardly adorable succulent resting on my lap and mumbled, Moonstone, oh Moonstone, please thrive on the day of the banquet. Together, we shall dazzle them. Grandma's birthday banquet was tenfold more extravagant than Shin Chiyue's birthday celebration, held at the Shun family's astonishingly vast ancestral home on the outskirts of the city. The antique garden architecture exudes an air of accumulated elegance and depth. The guests passing through clearly possess distinguished status, radiating a formidable presence. Shun Baizhou and Xin Shuyi personally greet visitors at the entrance, while Shun Yuhua stands nearby,
Composed and reserved.
Shun Chiyue, clad in a modified qipao, appears gentle and charming, dutifully accompanying Xin Shuyi. I remain in the gown prepared by Xin Shuyi. This time a subtly understated champagne hue, yet the fabric and tailoring remain undeniably exquisite. Clutching my modest clay flower pot, simply wrapped in old newspaper, I blend into the crowd of impeccably dressed individuals, resembling an out-of-place prop. Countless glances, both overt and covert, settle upon me, filled with scrutiny, curiosity, and unabashed mockery. A residue of the previous banquet. Look, it's her, the one who played the most dazzling ethnic style at her sister's birthday party. I heard her gift to the matriarch was a pot of succulents, the kind you can buy 3 for 10 yuan at the roadside. The whispers buzz like flies. From a distance, Shun Chiyue casts a glance my way, the corners of her mouth curling into an almost imperceptible arc of superiority. I take my small flower pot and find a discreet corner to sit, striving to diminish my presence. The main event soon unfolds. The matriarch of the Shun family, supported by Shun Yuhua, slowly emerges from the inner hall. Clad in a deep purple velvet qipao, her silver hair meticulously styled, she dons a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. Her face, marked by deep wrinkles, maintains an upright posture, and her gaze is as sharp as an eagle's, surveying the room with an aura of authority that commands respect. The banquet hall falls into an immediate hush, and everyone rises to pay their respects. May Mother enjoy blessings as vast as the eastern sea and longevity surpassing that of the southern mountains. Shun Baizhou is the first to speak, wishing Grandma a long life like the pine and crane, forever youthful. Shun Yuhua and Shin Chiyue follow suit, their voices clear and resonant. Next comes a continuous stream of guests offering their birthday congratulations, presenting an array of exquisitely wrapped gifts, each clearly of immense value. Precious antiques, top-tier jewelry, and rare medicinal supplements pile high on a grand redwood table. Shin Chiyue presents a beautifully framed oil painting, rumored to be a signature piece by a rising artist, evoking admiration from the crowd. The matriarch merely nods slightly, her expression neutral, her gaze tranquil and unwavering. When it is my turn, nearly every eye in the room converges on me, awaiting a more significant spectacle. Clutching my newspaper-wrapped gift amidst Xin Shuyi's anxious worry, Shen Baizhou's veiled warning, and Shin Chiyue's eager anticipation, I slowly approach. Grandma, happy birthday, and wishing you good health. My voice is not loud, yet it resonates clearly. The matriarch's gaze, framed by her gold-rimmed glasses, scrutinizes me with a hint of curiosity. She remains silent. I unwrap the old newspaper, revealing the plain clay pot and the slightly revived echeveria I had watered beforehand. A wave of suppressed gasps and snickers ripples through the banquet hall. What on earth is this? Is that really a succulent? My goodness, how embarrassing for Mr. Shen. Shun Baijiu's expression darkens instantly, his hand clenched at his side. Cin Shuyi is nearly faint with anxiety. Shin Chiyue covers her mouth, her shoulders trembling, struggling to suppress laughter. Ignoring the cacophony, I extend the small flower pot forward. My tone steady. Grandma, this pot of echeveria is for you. It's easy to care for, just a bit of sunlight and occasional watering will do. Watching it grow and sprout new leaves can be quite delightful. I hope it brings you joy every day. A profound silence envelopes the room. Everyone anticipates the matriarch's fury or Shen Baijiu's immediate expulsion of me. The matriarch's gaze shifts from my face to the inconspicuous succulent in my hands, lingering for several seconds. Then, she extends her hand, not to accept the valuable jewelry or paintings, but to firmly grasp my humble offering. Her bony fingers gently caress the plump, thick leaves. A smile gradually unfurls on her previously expressionless face, softening the sharp lines etched by time. Good, she states, her voice low and gravelly, yet clear, resonating through the quiet hall. This gift is sincere. Cradling the pot of succulents, she examines it further before nodding at me. Child, you have a thoughtful heart. Then, she turns to the butler standing nearby and instructs, place this on the windowsill in my room, right next to the pot of 18 scholars. Yes, madam. The butler replies respectfully, carefully taking the flower pot. The banquet hall remains in stunned silence. Everyone is momentarily bewildered. Shun Baijiu's anger freezes into shock, while Cin Shi covers her mouth, tears of genuine surprise welling in her eyes. Shin Chiyue's smile vanishes entirely, replaced by disbelief and rigidity. She stares at the pot of succulents being solemnly carried away by the butler, her expression burning with jealousy. Shun Yuhua, standing behind the matriarch, regards me with a newfound curiosity, as though truly seeing me for the first time. The matriarch does not cast her gaze upon anyone else. Cradling the small pot of echeveria as if it were a rare treasure, and with the butler's assistance, she slowly returns to the inner hall, leaving a room full of guests with varying expressions and swirling thoughts. I remain where I am, absorbing the complex gazes directed at me from all sides, scratching my head. Did I just overstep? After the matriarch's birthday banquet, my position within the Shun family subtly shifts. Shun Baijiu's previously furious and frustrated gaze toward me softens, now imbued with an inscrutable complexity. He no longer mentions sending me to the company or assigns me any tasks. Cin Shui seems to believe that my unexpected success in pleasing the matriarch has restored her faith in me. But she no longer dares to force me into learning this or that, instead finding various ways to present me with delightful treats in an attempt to win me over with culinary delights. Shin Chiyue has quieted down entirely. When she sees me, her smile remains sweet, but her eyes are evasive, hinting at a mixture of trepidation and reluctance. She likely cannot fathom how that shabby succulent captured the matriarch's attention. Only Shin Yuhua appears to have developed a keen interest in me. 3 days after the birthday banquet, he unexpectedly knocks on my room door. I am seated cross-legged on the thick carpet, intensely engaged in a fierce game on my tablet. He stands at the door in a well-pressed dark loungewear, observing my disheveled state with a habitual frown. Is there something you need? I ask without looking up, my fingers dancing across the screen. Grandma wishes to see you. He replies succinctly.
Oh?
My hand twitches, causing my character to perish in the game.
Now?
Yes, he replies, stepping aside. The matriarch does not reside in the main house, but in a quieter, independent courtyard behind the old residence. The courtyard, though small, is brimming with vibrant flowers and plants, meticulously maintained. On the windowsill, indeed, rests my pot of echeveria, alongside a flourishing white camellia, likely the pot of 18 scholars. The echeveria seems to have perked up significantly, its leaves glistening with a healthy lavender hue under the sunlight. The matriarch sits in a wicker chair, a thin blanket draped over her legs, engrossed in a book. Upon seeing me enter, she removes her reading glasses. Child, come, sit. She gestures to the chair beside her. I sit down somewhat awkwardly. Feeling a bit constrained in the presence of this formidable matriarch, my usual nonchalance feels out of place. That little pot of yours, the matriarch indicates toward the windowsill, is quite interesting. Watching it brings a sense of tranquility. I'm glad you like it, I respond earnestly. Since Shui mentioned you don't wish to go to the company? The matriarch inquires directly. Yes, I reply. I nodded, disinterested and incapable of engaging. What do you wish to do? After a moment of contemplation, I replied, perhaps, merely biding my time? The elderly lady did not take offense. Instead, she chuckled, the creases at the corners of her eyes smoothing out. How refreshingly honest. Better than your father, who, despite being utterly exhausted, insists on maintaining a facade. I was somewhat taken aback. The Shun family's vessel is vast and heavy. She spoke leisurely, her gaze drifting towards the window. The helmsman is weary, as are those who row beneath. Everyone aspires to ascend, to reap greater rewards. It is a chaotic milieu. Turning her head to scrutinize me, her eyes sharp, she remarked, you, however, are astute. You discerned the discomfort of this ship at a glance and chose to recline on the deck to bask in the sun. Grandmother, I felt compelled to defend myself. I am simply lazy, not clever. Laziness? The elderly lady scoffed lightly. A truly indolent person would never think to present me with a potted flower that requires no care. An idler would not, in such a setting, withstand the ridicule of others while maintaining their composure and offering a gift. That is not laziness, my dear. She paused, articulating each word with precision. What you exhibit is indifference. A jolt resonated within me. Indifference to the Shun family's wealth, to their influence, to public opinion, to the prospect of boarding that coveted vessel that everyone clamors for. The elderly lady scrutinized me as if she could penetrate my very soul. You merely seek a comfortable corner to live your own tranquil life, do you not? I fell silent. Her observation seemed undeniably accurate. Quite commendable. She suddenly chuckled again, with a note of admiration. You possess clarity in your existence, far superior to those who, in their zeal to burrow deeper into this world, ultimately twist themselves into knots. She picked up a teacup from the small table beside her and took a sip. However, she set the cup down and shifted the conversation. The children of the Shin family, even if they wish to be idle, cannot be mere playthings for others. What is rightfully yours will not elude you. What should not be yours, you must possess the skill to avoid. I felt a bit bewildered, struggling to grasp her meaning. Return now. She waved her hand, resuming her reading. I shall tend to that pot of flowers for you. Do visit often to bask in the sun with this old woman and share a few words. Dazed, I exited the elderly lady's small courtyard. Shen Yuhua was still waiting outside. What did Grandma say to you? He inquired, his gaze inquisitive. She praised my clarity in life, I replied candidly. Shen Yuhua's expression turned peculiar, as if he wished to say something but swallowed his words. Ultimately, he simply gazed at me deeply and said, go back. The elderly lady's words rippled through my mind like a pebble cast upon a still pond. I sensed that the depths of the Shin family were far greater than I had previously imagined. Meanwhile, I, the fish yearning to remain idle, appeared to have caught the attention of unseen currents. Sure enough, trouble soon followed. Shun Buozhou unexpectedly summoned me to his study. His expression was grave, tinged with fatigue. Yan, there is a matter that requires your attention. A warning bell rang in my mind. Here it comes, the trouble is upon us. Father, you know my. This matter can only be handled by you, Shin Buozhou interrupted, his tone brooking no dissent, and it must be executed well. He handed me a document. Upon glancing at it, my head felt as though it had swelled threefold. It pertained to a high-end resort project under the Group S umbrella. The project itself was sound. However, the issue lay with a nearby fishing village. The project necessitated the requisition of a portion of the village's land and waters, and compensation had long been agreed upon, with most villagers signing the agreement. Yet there were a dozen stubborn households, led by an obstinate old fisherman named Lin, who refused to budge, as stubborn as a mule. Impervious to reason. The project team had visited countless times, employing both gentle persuasion and firm measures, even inciting minor conflicts, resulting in a stalemate. The project's timeline was severely delayed, accruing astronomical losses daily. Moreover, word had spread, tarnishing the group's reputation. This old stubborn man, Shun Buozhou, rubbed his temples. Has a foul temper and an unyielding disposition. Those sent to negotiate have returned scolded. He seems to harbor a prejudice against the wealthy. He looked at me. His expression complex. You should give it a try.
Me?
I pointed to myself, incredulous. Father, do you think I resemble a negotiation expert? If I go, he may not even let me through the door. Precisely because you display indifference towards the Shun family's affairs, even bordering on rebellion, he might be less resistant to you. Shun Guozhou reasoned. Consider it your duty to understand the situation, to discern why he refuses to move and what his true demands are. Do not pressure for a result. Simply do your best. He paused and added, this is one of the group's most pressing dilemmas. If resolved, you may lounge as you wish without my interference. That last statement struck a chord deep within me. The allure of freedom was too great. Very well, I resolved, steeling myself. I shall go and take a look. But let me state in advance, if I mess this up, do not blame me. Shun Guozhou exhaled in relief. Let Yuhua arrange for someone and a vehicle to accompany you. Stay safe. Shin Yuhua dispatched one of his assistants and a driver to accompany me. The vehicle ventured out of the bustling metropolis and towards the seaside. The air gradually filled with the briny scent of the ocean. The fishing village was not large. Nestled by the mountains and sea, with mostly low stone houses that appeared somewhat dilapidated. Old fishing boats were docked at the pier, and fishing nets were laid out on the beach. As our vehicle entered the village, it attracted numerous wary and resentful glances. Clearly, representatives from the Shun group had previously caused quite a disturbance. Following the address, we located the home of the obstinate Lin. It was a small courtyard built of stone, with a tightly shut gate. The assistant approached and knocked on the door. After a prolonged silence, a loud and irate voice emanated from within. Get lost. I told you. I want to move. No amount of money will make me budge. Don't bother me again. The assistant looked at me, visibly troubled. I sighed, stepped forward, and called out through the door, Old Lin, I'm not here to persuade you to move. I'm sent by the Shun family to, experience life. I'd like to stay with you for a couple of days. There was a moment of silence inside. Then, the door creaked open just a crack. A weathered, dark face, lined with deep wrinkles and adorned with stubble, peered out, eyes sharp as knives scanning us before settling on me. People from the Shun family? He inquired, his tone unfriendly, scrutinizing me from head to toe, particularly lingering on my attire, which seemed out of place in the village. After a brief moment, he scoffed, soft-skinned and tender. What do you know of life?
Get lost.
As the door began to shut again, I swiftly caught the edge, speaking rapidly, Old Lin. I truly am not here to negotiate. Do I look like someone who can negotiate? I've been sent here as a form of punishment. They find me annoying. I'm here to experience the hardships of life. Please have mercy and let me stay for a couple of days. I can pay rent. I'll help you with work. Old Lin eyed me suspiciously. Sent here as punishment? Yes. I nodded vigorously, my expression earnest. My family values sons over daughters. My brother is the treasured one. As for me, I'm just a burden. Being at home is unbearable. So, they've sent me to you. Perhaps it was the air of genuine despondence emanating from me that swayed him. He huffed, finally pulling the door open wider.
Come in.
But let me be clear. You can stay, but don't cause any trouble. And don't mention moving. If you utter a word about it, you're out. Not a word. Absolutely not. I hastily assured him, quickly stepping inside. The assistant attempted to follow, but was met with a fierce glare from Old Lin. You stay outside. Reluctantly, the assistant and the driver retreated to the car. Old Lin's home was simple, even rudimentary. The stone house lacked any notable furniture, yet it was kept relatively clean. Fishing nets and straw hats adorned the walls, and a faint odor of fish and sea salt lingered in the air. He tossed me an old stool.
Seat.
I obediently took a seat. What's your name? Tan Yen. How old are you? 22. And Shun Guozhou, what relation is he to you? My father. Humph. Old Lin grunted again, picking up a chipped, coarse porcelain bowl from the stove, filling it with water before handing it to me.
Drink.
The water was slightly brackish, a product of the well. I cradled the bowl, sipping cautiously, hesitant to speak. Lin, unfazed, settled himself onto a stool, pulling out his pipe to light it. The Shin family sent a little girl like you here. What's their scheme? A ploy of feigned hardship? A beauty trap? I choked slightly, waving my hands in protest.
No.
Uncle Lin, truly not. I've merely been exiled. My father probably thought I would find it unbearable here and would run back home in tears. I set the bowl down, my expression earnest as I confessed. In truth, I find this place quite pleasant. The sea breeze is refreshing, the sun bright, and I needn't to endure the scrutiny of others at home. If you don't mind my clumsiness, I would be happy to stay a few more days. Lin puffed on his pipe, the smoke swirling around him as he squinted at me, remaining silent. Over the next 2 days, I embarked on my transformation in the fishing village. Clearly, Lin had no intention of letting me stay without contributing. Before dawn, he dragged me from the hard wooden bed to help him retrieve the crab traps set the previous night. The sea wind was biting, stinging my face like a blade. Wrapped in a borrowed, heavily fish-scented old cotton coat, I shivered as I clumsily assisted him in pulling the nets, nearly getting pinched by a large, clawing crab. So clumsy. Lin scolded, yet swiftly captured the crab and tossed it into the bucket. City kids are so pampered. During the day, I helped him mend fishing nets. The coarse nylon thread dug painfully into my fingers as I fumbled with the holes, my repairs crooked and resembling a tangle of knots. What are you even mending? A crab would get lost in here, Lin exclaimed, his irritation palpable as he snatched the net from my hands to fix it himself. I also assisted in drying fish, laying out the cleaned fish and shrimp on bamboo trays to sunbathe on the beach. The sun by the sea was merciless, and by the end of the day, I felt as if I were turning into dried fish myself. Meals were exceedingly simple, seafood boiled in water with a sprinkle of salt or brown rice with salted fish, with even oil being a rare luxury. After 2 days, I felt as drained as a desiccated fish, my skin darkened by the sun, fingers marked with small cuts, and a lingering fishy odor clung to me. Yet I did not complain. Exhaustion was real, and hardship too, but I noticed that Lin's scoldings, while still frequent, lacked their former fervor. Recognizing my evident struggles, he occasionally demonstrated techniques, albeit with his usual gruffness. On the evening of the 3rd day, we sat on small stools in the courtyard, eating thin porridge with salted fish. The setting sun painted the sea in hues of gold and crimson. Girl, Lin suddenly spoke, his voice slightly hoarse. Do you know why I'm reluctant to move? My heart stirred, sensing the crux of his feelings. I set down my bowl and shook my head. It's not about money. He gazed towards the distant sea, his eyes clouded yet distant. That meager compensation, what use is it? It cannot buy back my roots. My father and grandfather fished these waters. This house was built stone by my father. That big stone at the entrance is where I used to lie as a child, watching the sea. They want to flatten this land, to construct some resort for the wealthy. They claim it's for our benefit, to move us into new houses in town. But is that still my home? Without this sea, without this dock, what am I, Lin Lauke? Just an old fool waiting to die. He took a deep gulp of porridge, his throat moving as he swallowed hard. I am not unreasonable. Most villagers have moved. They seek a better life, and I cannot stop them. But these dozen or so families like me were born and raised here, half buried in this land. We just want to hold on to these memories, to guard our ancestors' graves, to die in our own homes. Is that wrong? His voice, though not loud, struck my heart like a hammer. It was not greed that motivated him, but an attachment to his homeland, a longing to return to one's roots. I recalled the old woman's words, "What is meant for you will not escape. What should not be touched must be avoided." That murky water was the seemingly irreconcilable conflict between the conglomerate and the villagers. Uncle Lin, I said softly, if I were to propose, hypothetically, that you and your dozen households remain, but with a small piece of land allocated to you, right next to the resort, preserving your old houses and even a small section of your own dock, you could continue living as before, catching little fish and shrimp for yourselves, or selling them to the resort as visitors. Once the resort is up and running, with more tourists, you might even earn more than before selling seafood and handicrafts. Wouldn't that be better? Lin stared at me, wide-eyed, as if he had seen a monster. Allocate land to us? Preserve the houses and dock? How could that be possible? Would the Shen family agree? I admitted I did not know, but I could relay your thoughts and our proposal to my father. It was better than remaining in deadlock, wouldn't you agree? Lin fell silent for a long time. The ember of his pipe flickered in the twilight. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and a hint of the tide. All right, he finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Girl, you go back and tell them. If it can truly be as you say, we will move. He paused, his murky eyes fixed on me. But if you're deceiving this old man. I hastily assured him I would not. Yet, my heart pounded with uncertainty. Would Shinbuizhou agree to this seemingly conciliatory proposal? Upon returning to the Shun household, I was swiftly summoned to the study. Shinbuizhou and Shin Yuhua were present. The atmosphere was tense. I recounted my experiences in the fishing village, Lin's true sentiments, and my improvised proposal to retain a portion of the land. Once I finished, silence enveloped the room. Shun Buizhou furrowed his brow, his fingers unconsciously tapping the table. Shun Yuhua regarded me with a newfound, scrutinizing gaze, as if he were seeing his sister for the first time. Retaining part of the village? In the resort's plans? Shin Buzhou finally spoke, his tone devoid of emotion. Do you understand what that means? The planning would need to be revised, the design significantly altered, costs would rise, and the timeline extended. Furthermore, retaining a group of fishermen there, wouldn't that affect the resort's upscale positioning? Would tourists not find it out of place? Father. I met his gaze. Increased costs and delays are indeed facts. But compared to the current standstill of the project, the daily losses and the damage to the group's reputation, which is the greater loss? As for the impact on positioning, I paused, gathering my thoughts. Why can't we look at it from another angle? The pristine charm of a fishing village is, in itself, a unique tourism resource. Adjacent to a high-end resort, preserving an authentic, vibrant fishing village would allow tourists to experience genuine fishermen's lives, savor the freshest seafood, and purchase distinctive souvenirs. Isn't this more appealing than the monotonous luxury hotels? This is what we call differentiated competition. Lin and his peers were not stubborn obstacles. They were living attractions, cultural ambassadors of the resort. Incorporating them into the resort's fabric, allowing them to profit from their crafts and livelihoods, would ensure they maintain the environment and order, rather than standing in opposition as they currently were. I spoke fervently, feeling slightly parched. The study fell silent again. Shin Buzhou's gaze was sharp as an eagle, sweeping over my face. Suddenly, Shin Yuhua spoke, his voice low. While this proposal may seem fanciful, it presents a unique perspective. Its feasibility warrants assessment, but at the very least, it offers a potential breakthrough. Shin Buzhou remained silent, his fingers still tapping the table, though the rhythm had slowed. After what felt like an eternity, he exhaled deeply, his gaze toward me filled with a complex mixture of shock, scrutiny, and a hint of disbelief. I will instruct the project team to reassess this matter and provide you and them with a response as soon as possible. He ultimately spoke, his tone imbued with a weariness as if the dust had settled, accompanied by a hint of relief.
Oh.
I nodded, the task accomplished, yearning only to return to a state of repose. May I return to my room? Shin Buzhou waved his hand dismissively, as if shooing away a fly. I felt as though I had been granted a reprieve and swiftly made my escape. A few days later, Shin Yuhua informed me that the group had adopted the core concept of preserving the fishing grounds. The planning had been adjusted, designating a specific area for the 10 or so elderly fishermen, allowing them to retain their homes and a small dock, while also assisting them in making some distinctive renovations to integrate into the overall resort plan. Old Lin and his stubborn companions consented to relocate. The resort project was finally reignited. Shin Yuhua's gaze towards me had transformed entirely. No longer did he perceive me as a mere useless entity, but rather with a profound curiosity and a barely perceptible trepidation. How did you conceive of this solution? He inquired. I stifled a yawn and replied nonchalantly. Just pondering while lying flat, you know. A salted fish occasionally flips over. After all, one must find a comfortable position to settle back into. Following the fishing village incident, my standing within the Shin family had curiously solidified. Although Shin Buzhou still regarded me with disdain, thinking me unproductive, he no longer imposed tasks upon me. Perhaps he had come to realize that this crooked tree could not be forcibly straightened, and on occasion, it might bear an unexpected fruit. Sin Shui, meanwhile, reveled in the delight of my daughter's perceived cleverness, indulging me further with ample pocket money, provided I refrained from causing chaos akin to the most dazzling national style. Shin Chiwa had completely retreated, maintaining her smile upon seeing me, yet beneath that smile lay a deep-seated wariness and estrangement. She had likely come to understand that this seemingly harmless succulent was not as innocuous as it appeared. I continued my idle existence, basking in the sun, reading novels, playing games, and occasionally being summoned by the elderly lady to the small courtyard to tend to the flowers and engage in idle chatter. The pot of moonlight on her windowsill flourished more robustly, even producing a ring of tiny offspring. Life was as tranquil as a still pond, until, quite suddenly, the elderly lady fell ill. The news arrived unexpectedly. She collapsed in the small courtyard of the old residence and was urgently transported to the finest private hospital. The situation grew critical. The Shin family was instantly thrown into disarray. Shin Buzhou and Sin Shui remained nearly glued to the hospital room door. Shin Yuhua suspended all pressing work, delegating company affairs to his deputy. Shin Chiwa wept, her eyes red, keeping a vigil day and night, dutifully serving tea and water, displaying utmost filial piety. The entire Shin household was shrouded in a pall of sorrow. As the second daughter, I was naturally summoned to the hospital. Outside the premium ward, The atmosphere was so tense one could practically squeeze water from it. The scent of disinfectant mingled with oppressive anxiety. Shin Baijiu appeared aged by several years overnight. Seated on a bench, his brow furrowed. Qin Shi's eyes were swollen like walnuts, resting her head on her husband's shoulder, silently shedding tears. Shin Yuhua stood against the wall, his expression grim, his lips pressed into a straight line. Shin Chiyu sat on the opposite side, delicately wiping the forehead and hands of the unconscious elderly lady with a damp cloth, her movements gentle, her demeanor sorrowful. I stood in a slightly distant corner, observing the elderly lady in the ward, connected to a respirator and pallid, feeling a pang of discomfort. Although our interactions were limited, this astute elderly lady was the only one in the Shin family who seemed to understand me, even appreciating my laid-back attitude. What did the doctor say? I whispered to Shin Yuhua beside me. He glanced at me, his gaze weary. The situation is not good. She's elderly, suffering from organ failure. This time it's perilous. My heart sank. In the ensuing days, the hospital became the Shin family's second stronghold. Shin Baijiu and Shin Yuhua took turns managing crucial company affairs, spending the remainder of their time at the hospital. Qin Shi and Shin Chiyu nearly lived there, attending to every detail with utmost care. Shin Chiyu stood out particularly. She seemed well-versed in nursing, administering water and medication, massaging and repositioning, monitoring the equipment with practiced grace and gentleness. She always spoke softly to the slumbering elderly lady, recounting amusing tales from the past or reciting soothing scriptures. Her filial devotion and competence garnered the admiration of the medical staff and the Shun couple alike. In stark contrast, I felt exceedingly superfluous and intrusive. I lacked the ability to care for others, even clumsily offering water. The complex machinery made me dizzy. Reciting scriptures? I could only chant skill spells from games. Most of the time, I merely sat quietly on the sofa in the corner of the ward, observing. Or, when everyone was bustling about, I would quietly go to the pantry for hot water or venture downstairs to buy some fruits and snacks. Once, as Shin Chiyu was exhausted from cleaning the elderly lady, drenched in sweat, I handed her a tissue. She accepted it, casting a glance my way. Her eyes filled with a subtle, condescending pity, as if to say, "Look, aside from causing trouble, you are of no use." Shin Baijiu, too, on several occasions, regarded me with discontent, perhaps deeming me, his granddaughter, cold-blooded and ineffectual. I remained indifferent. The elderly lady required professional medical care and meticulous attention, roles fulfilled by Shin Chiyu and the skilled nursing staff. My presence would only serve to complicate matters, indeed rendering me of little utility. Yet, I sensed she might need something different. On the third night, it was my turn to keep vigil. Shin Baijiu and his wife, as well as Shin Yuhua, had all returned home. Shin Chiyu, unable to endure any longer, was persuaded by Qin Shi to rest. Only I remained in the ward, accompanied by a night shift nurse and the rhythmic beeping of the machines. The elderly lady was in a deep slumber. I sat in the chair beside her bed, gazing at her pale, emaciated face under the light, stripped of her usual authority, revealing the fragility of an aging soul. I recalled the vibrant flowers and plants in her courtyard, the smile that graced her face as she cradled that pot of moonlight. I rose, treading lightly as I exited the ward. The hospital was serene in the deep of night. I found a convenience store downstairs and purchased a small bag of the most ordinary millet. Returning to the ward's small tea room, I procured a small saucepan, cleaned the millet, added water, and placed it on the induction cooker to simmer slowly. There were no exotic delicacies, no precious medicinal ingredients, merely a bowl of the simplest, most unadorned porridge. The aroma of rice gradually permeated the air, dispelling some of the antiseptic scent. I kept vigil over that pot of porridge, gently stirring with a spoon to prevent it from sticking to the bottom. Over low heat, I simmered until the grains bloomed and the porridge thickened into a creamy consistency. The nurse observed me curiously. "Second miss, are you making porridge?" I replied softly, "If Grandma wakes up, she might want something light." The nurse nodded, not pursuing the matter further. Once the porridge was ready, I ladled a small bowl, allowing it to cool to a warm temperature. Returning to the bedside, the elderly lady remained in deep slumber. I placed the bowl of warm porridge on the bedside table and covered it to keep it warm. Then I resumed my seat, took out my phone, dimmed the screen, donned my headphones, and began to watch a slow-paced, visually soothing documentary about underwater coral reefs. There was no reciting of scriptures, no narratives, only a serene quietude and the calming sounds of the ocean emanating from my headphones. In the early hours of the morning, the elderly lady seemed to stir slightly, her brow furrowing. I immediately removed my headphones, leaning closer, gently asking, "Grandma, are you awake? Would you like some water? Or perhaps some porridge?" The elderly lady slowly opened her eyes a fraction, her gaze somewhat murky and unfocused. I lifted the bowl of warm porridge, scooping a small amount with a spoon, bringing it to her lips, speaking softly, "Grandma, would you like to have some millet porridge? I made it. It's very soft and not hot." She did not resist, slightly parting her lips to swallow that small amount of warmth. She neither opened her eyes nor spoke. Yet, with my hand guiding her, she slowly swallowed another couple of mouthfuls. Then, her brow seemed to relax a bit, her breathing steadied, and she fell back into a deep sleep. I placed the bowl down and gently wiped her lips with a warm, damp cloth. The nurse observed from the side, her eyes showing signs of emotion. I settled back into my chair, gazing at the serene visage of the elderly woman, a sense of inexplicable calm washing over me. Outside the window, the city's lights flickered incessantly through the night. Within the hospital room, the only sounds were the rhythmic beeping of the machines and the faint aroma of rice. Miraculously, under the dedicated care of a top-tier medical team, the elderly lady's condition had stabilized and begun to show signs of gradual improvement. During this time, Shin Chiyue's unwavering attentiveness garnered unanimous praise from all. Even the usually stern Shin Buozhou regarded her with newfound appreciation and warmth. Cin Shui, with teary eyes, grasped her hand and said, "Cho, you've worked so hard. You truly are Grandma's little ball of warmth." Shin Chiyue humbly smiled, her eyes glistening with moisture. "Mother, please don't say that. Caring for Grandma is my duty." Meanwhile, I remained the inconspicuous backdrop. Aside from that one evening when the elderly lady sipped a few spoonfuls of the porridge I had prepared, I seemed to contribute little else. No one acknowledged that bowl of porridge, nor did anyone care. As the elderly lady's consciousness gradually returned, she spent more time awake. When she felt a bit better, Shin Buozhou and his wife, Shin Yuhua, along with Shin Chiyue, would gather by her bedside, engaging her in conversation, updating her on the company's affairs, and sharing tidbits from the outside world. Shin Chiyue was invariably the most vibrant among them, her voice gentle and her laughter bright, managing to coax occasional smiles from the elderly lady. I typically sat quietly in a corner, listening attentively. Only when the elderly lady's gaze occasionally swept over me did I muster a smile in return. One day, the room was left to just the two of us, me and the nurse. The elderly lady reclined in her elevated bed, her spirits relatively decent. She gazed out at the brilliant sunlight filtering through the window and suddenly spoke. Her voice still frail. "How is the pot of Longhua doing?" I was taken aback but quickly responded, "It's thriving. I visited the old residence a couple of days ago, and it has sprouted many new leaves. It looks quite lively. The caretaker is doing a splendid job." The elderly lady nodded, fell silent for a moment, and then softly remarked, "That porridge from that night was rather delightful." I smiled. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was just a bit of millet, nothing more." The elderly lady turned her head, her murky yet still penetrating eyes fixed on me for an extended period.
"Child,"
she said slowly, "you are like this millet porridge."
Huh.
I was puzzled. "It seems unremarkable," she continued, her voice soft yet clear, "but once properly prepared, it reveals its flavor and nurtures the soul." A jolt ran through my heart, my nose inexplicably tinged with a hint of sorrow. "Grandma, please rest." The elderly lady closed her eyes, appearing fatigued. "I shall take a short nap." On the day of her discharge, the Shin family was enveloped in joy. She was taken back to the small courtyard of the old residence to recuperate. Shin Buozhou arranged for the finest family doctor and nursing team. This significant illness seemed to have granted the elderly lady clarity about many things. She no longer inquired about specific company matters, spending most of her time in the small courtyard, tending to plants or reading. Shin Chiyue remained the most diligent, bustling about, checking on her comfort, and presenting her with various exquisite tonics and snacks. The elderly lady always greeted her with a benevolent smile, accepting her kindness and praising her filial piety. In contrast, her demeanor toward me was much more neutral. When I visited, she would invite me to sit beside her, occasionally asking trivial questions like what novels I was currently reading or what level I had reached in my games. Shin Chiyue observed this, likely believing that the elderly lady's affections had completely shifted toward her, while I, as her biological granddaughter, remained in the shadows. Until 1 month later, The elderly lady summoned Shinbujo, Shinyuhua, Shinchiue, and me to her small courtyard. The sun shone perfectly, and the flowers flourished vibrantly. On the windowsill, the pod of longyue glistened in the sunlight, its leaves exhibiting a translucent, jelly-like hue, plump and charming. The elderly lady sat in a wicker chair, her spirits noticeably lifted. Without looking at anyone in particular, her gaze settled on the longyue as she began to speak, her voice calm yet imbued with undeniable authority. I have aged. With one foot already in the grave. Certain matters must be settled. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. Shinchiue instinctively straightened her back, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. The elderly lady's gaze swept over us, finally resting on Shinbujo. Bujo, you shall steer the Shun family ship. I trust you. Then she looked at Shinyuhua, her eyes reflecting both expectation and a hint of sternness. You possess great potential. Hone it well, and one day you shall take your father's place. Shun Yuhua nodded respectfully.
Yes, Grandma.
Shun Bujo exhaled a sigh of relief. Shin Chiue's smile became even sweeter, her eyes sparkling as she awaited her own arrangements. Would it be shares? Or perhaps the management rights of a significant subsidiary? Finally, the elderly lady's gaze turned to Shin Chiue and me. Chiue, her tone remained gentle. You are a good child, filial, sensible, and capable. Shin Chiue's smile blossomed, radiating restrained joy. Grandma, so. The elderly lady's tone shifted, becoming profound. I have prepared a dowry for you. The large flat in the city center, along with a sum allocated from the trust fund, will ensure you live comfortably without worry. Shin Chiue's smile froze instantly. A dowry? Not shares? Not entry into the core of the conglomerate? Her complexion paled gradually, her lips quivering as she stared incredulously at the elderly lady. Shinbujo and Shinyuhua also exhibited expressions of surprise. Yet, the elderly lady did not glance back at her, her gaze calmly shifting to me. My heart raced.
Danjan. Grandma.
You, the elderly lady regarded me with a complex expression, one that hinted at understanding, resignation, and an unspoken trust one could not comprehend. I know that even if I give you mountains of gold and silver, you would find them cumbersome to manage. And trusting you with a company would be far too taxing. The elderly lady retrieved a somewhat worn, deep purple velvet pouch from a nearby table and handed it to me.
Take this.
I received it, puzzled, feeling its weight. Opening the pouch, I emptied its contents. It was a seal. Neither gold nor jade. Its material was smooth and warm, a deep purple reminiscent of some rare stone. The top was engraved with ancient cloud patterns, while the bottom bore intricate characters inscribed in seal script, reading Anlin. Shun Bujo abruptly stood, his complexion drastically altered. His voice pitched higher. Mother, the Anlin seal? How could you? Shun Yuhua's pupils constricted suddenly, fixating intently on the seal in my hand. Her face betraying an astonished expression for the first time. Shin Chiua looked as though struck by lightning, her fists clenched tightly, nails digging into her palms. Her eyes filled with shock, resentment, and bitterness. Anlin Trust. The elderly lady's voice was low yet resonated like thunder in everyone's ears. With this seal, you are the sole, irrevocable trustee of Anlin Trust. The benefits from the trust will provide you with a lifetime of ease. The principal and its management will be handled by a professional team, requiring no effort on your part. Anlin Trust. I had vaguely overheard that name in hushed conversations between Shinyuhua and Shinbujo, discussions shrouded in secrecy. It was the true foundation and essence of the Shun family, an extensive pool of funds existing independently of the Shun group. It was said that the elderly lady had single-handedly established it, the last bastion and assurance for the Shun family. Its status even seemed to transcend that of the Shun group.
Trustee?
Sole? Irrevocable? This implied that regardless of how the Shun group fared in the future, even if it faced bankruptcy, as long as Anlin Trust remained, I would be able to live in comfort, without a care. A genuine, worry-free existence. The elderly lady observed my stunned expression and slowly said, Child, did you not wish to become a slacker? Grandma is providing you with an ocean. With this ocean, you may choose to be as languid as you desire. The courtyard fell into a profound silence. Only the gentle rustling of the wind through the flowers interrupted the stillness. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, cascading down onto the deep purple seal in my palm, warm and cool to the touch. Holding it, I felt as though I had grasped a heavy, tranquil sea. Shin Chiue could no longer contain herself, her voice breaking as she cried out, Grandma, why? What have I done wrong? I devoted myself wholeheartedly to your care. What about her? What has she done? She merely lies around. On what grounds does she reside in the Su family? Shen Buozhou sharply admonished her, yet his gaze mirrored confusion and shock as he turned to the elderly matriarch. Mother, is this not rather hasty? Tan Yen, she does not comprehend these matters. Anlin's voice suddenly rose, imbued with the weight of someone long accustomed to authority. Her sharp eyes sweeping over Shen Buozhou and Shen Qiyu, precisely because she does not understand. Precisely because she is indifferent. Precisely because she only wishes to lead her tranquil life. Her gaze finally settled on me, carrying the weariness and understanding of one who has seen through the world. Anlin trust is the root of the Shen family, the last vessel. And trusting it to a clever individual who is eager to steer it towards their own ambitions makes me uneasy. Only by handing it over to someone who merely desires to lie on the deck, basking in the sun, unconcerned with the ship's course, can we ensure the vessel's true tranquility. This ship, she declared emphatically, can only be safeguarded by someone who genuinely does not care for it, thus preventing it from capsizing. She turned her gaze towards the pale, trembling Shen Qiyu, her tone softening yet resolute. Qiyu, you are admirable. However, your heart is too grand, too wild. The dowry I bestow upon you is sufficient for a life of wealth. Live well, and do not covet what is not meant for you. She then looked at Shen Buozhou and Shen Yu. This seal, I have given to Tan Yen. It belongs to her. None of you should harbor any thoughts about it. You are well aware of the rules of Anlin Trust. Shen Buozhou opened his mouth, yet ultimately lowered his head in dejection under the matriarch's piercing gaze. Yes, mother. Shen Yuhua's eyes darted between me and the seal, ultimately reflecting a profound complexity and a hint of relief. He nodded slightly, understood, grandmother. Shen Qiyu, covering her face, sobbed as she fled the courtyard. The sun continued to shine brightly. The matriarch seemed to have exhausted her strength, wearily leaning back in her rattan chair, closing her eyes, and waved her hand. Everyone leave. Danjan stas. Shen Buozhou and Shen Yuhua, with complex emotions, retreated. In the courtyard, only the matriarch and I remained. I grasped the warm seal, feeling my palm heat up, my heart tumultuous. Grandmother, my throat felt dry. This is too heavy. The matriarch opened her eyes, regarding me with unusual clarity, even a hint of mischief in her smile, devoid of the weariness from earlier. Silly girl, she lowered her voice, a touch of pride evident. Do you truly believe I have become muddled? That I am on the brink of death? The illness, the matriarch said slowly, like a child reveling in a successful prank, was 7 parts truth, 3 parts performance. I was utterly bewildered. Without such a guise, how could one discern the hearts of men? The matriarch's eyes sharpened. That child Qiyu harbors ulterior motives. While I was ill, her eyes shone with filial piety, yet concealed calculations. Did she think she hid them well? I have consumed more salt than she has rice. Buozhou and Yuhua, their minds are consumed with the grand ship of the Shen family. If Anlin Trust were entrusted to them, it would inevitably be absorbed as fuel or wielded as a bargaining chip for power. Only you. She gazed at me, her expression softening. Dear girl, you genuinely do not care. Even if given mountains of gold and silver, you would prefer to lie in the sun. With Anlin Trust in your hands, true tranquility can be achieved, for you are too disinterested to pursue it. She patted the back of my hand. Take it. This is your permit to be a salted fish from your grandmother. From now on, if the sky were to fall, the trust will shield you. You may lie, sit, or sprawl as you wish. Tears welled in my eyes, unsure of what to say. It dawned on me that everything had been under the matriarch's control. My indifference, my salted fish disposition, had become her most trusted quality. Enough. The matriarch closed her eyes again, a smile tugging at her lips. Do not be sentimental. Off you go. I wish to bask in the sun. Remember to visit and tend to my flowers, especially that pot of luminous moon. Exiting the matriarch's courtyard, the sunlight was somewhat blinding. I clutched the smooth seal tightly in my palm, the deep purple stone shimmering with a subdued brilliance in the sunlight. It was heavy, the weight of wealth, the burden of responsibility, and the matriarch's profound understanding and heartfelt entrustment. Strangely, I felt no trepidation as I had imagined. Instead, I felt as though a great stone had been lifted from my shoulders. For I knew, from this day forth, I would no longer need to fear being forcibly enlisted as a sailor on the Shen family's grand vessel. I had secured for myself a tranquil sea of my own. Shen Buozhou and Shen Yuhua waited outside the courtyard. Shen Buozhou looked at me, his expression a complex tapestry of shock, confusion, and helplessness, ultimately culminating in a long sigh. He said nothing, merely gave my shoulder a heavy pat before turning to leave, his back slightly hunched, as though a vital support had been suddenly withdrawn. Shen Yuhua approached. Towering over me, he cast a shadow in my direction, lowering his gaze, not at me, but rather at my tightly clenched hand. His deep-set eyes swirled with myriad emotions, scrutiny, inquiry, a hint of reluctance, ultimately settling into an odd calmness and resignation. Congratulations, he spoke, his voice slightly hoarse. Thank you. Elder brother, I replied, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. Amlin Trust, he paused, seemingly weighing his words, is of great importance. I hope you'll guard it well. Rest assured. Elder brother, I open my palm to reveal the deep purple seal, sunlight dancing upon its ancient cloud patterns. I harbor no interest in sailing. I prefer to lie on the deck. This anchor, I shall safeguard diligently. Shen Yuhua regarded me with an expression that was calm, even somewhat languid. Before falling into silence for a few seconds, the corners of his mouth twitching upwards in a barely perceptible smile. Perhaps it was a resigned, bitter smile? If you need anything, seek me out. With that, he too turned away. Sunlight poured over me once more. I lifted my gaze to the azure sky, exhaling a long, deep breath.
Free.
Truly free. I did not remain in the cold, imposing palace of the Shen family. Instead, armed with the matriarch's salted fish permit and the rights to Amlin Trust's proceeds, I acquired a small, nearly defunct bookstore in a tranquil old district amidst the city's bustle. The bookstore had once borne the rather mundane name of Golden House. I renamed it Dragon Scale. There was no profound meaning behind it. I simply thought that a salted fish, even if it manages to flip, remains a salted fish. But what if? What if the salted fish is indeed a dragon, merely too indolent to soar? Shedding a scale and opening a store is quite agreeable. The shop was modest, featuring two old wooden-framed glass doors that creaked softly when pushed open. Raw wood bookshelves occupied most of the space, filled with a variety of books, new and old, profound and light, welcoming all. Sunlight filtered through the tall sycamore leaves, streaming through the windows and casting dappled light upon the wooden floor. In a corner, I carved out a small nook for myself, furnished with a spacious, comfortable old sofa and a low wooden coffee table. Beside the sofa stood a coarse pottery flower pot, home to a plump, vibrant luminous moon succulent, a sprout I had specially transplanted from the matriarch's courtyard. I became the owner and sole employee of Dragon Scale Bookstore. Each day, I awoke naturally, meandering to the shop, opening the doors, cleaning, arranging the shelves, and then settling into my sofa to read, watch shows, play games, or simply daydream. The trust's proceeds arrived punctually in my account, with zeros trailing behind numbers so numerous I couldn't be bothered to count. It was sufficient for me to whimsically purchase any book I desired and to employ a diligent cleaning lady to come each afternoon, brewing a pot of fragrant coffee or steeping a cup of tea. Business? It was left to fate. If someone entered, I would merely lift an eyelid, casually say, "Feel free to browse. Whether you buy or not is up to you." When it came time to settle up, scanning a code would suffice. Pricing was flexible, and one could even trade a book. Gradually, the neighbors and regular patrons of this old street came to know of the remarkably lazy yet inexplicably soothing young proprietress of Longlin. The owner of the flower shop next door often brought me some leftover, yet still fresh, blooms to arrange in the glass vases upon the bar. The young man from the cafe at the corner would reliably deliver a cup of my favored latte every afternoon, come rain or shine. A retired professor enjoyed rummaging through my collection of rare vintage books while engaging me in a few games of chess, often leaving me utterly vanquished. Occasionally, a few artistic youths, guitars slung over their shoulders, would nestle in the corner of the bookstore, softly strumming and singing unfamiliar folk songs, their melodies drifting gently amidst the scent of books, imbuing the atmosphere with a unique tenderness. Time flowed like the fragmented sunlight filtering through the sycamore trees in front, warm, delicate and languid. Everything related to the Shen family seemed to drift farther away from me. Shun Baizhou and Xin Shui would occasionally call, their tones cautious and somewhat ingratiating, perhaps due to the influence of Amlin that lingered in my grasp. I would answer, exchange a few perfunctory words, assure them of my well-being, and then hang up. Shen Yuhua visited once, clad in an exquisitely tailored suit that seemed out of place in my antiquated bookstore, as if he had mistakenly wandered onto the wrong set. He said nothing, merely meandering around the store, flipping through a few books, ultimately standing before my pot of moonlight for an extended period. When he departed, he purchased a dusty copy of On Sea Power, scanning the payment with an amount sufficient to buy every book in the store. I refrained from uttering a word. As for Shinchiwa, I had not seen her again. I heard she married a well-matched scion, armed with a generous dowry, and embraced the glamorous life she had always desired. Quite well, indeed. An elderly lady became a frequent visitor to my bookstore. Her health had improved considerably, and she appeared quite spirited. Each time she visited, she donned comfortable linen garments, embodying the essence of an ordinary grandmother. She relished sitting on a small stool across from me, immersed in a leisurely book, often for the entire afternoon. Occasionally, she would ask me to brew her a cup of floral tea or grumble about the overly sweet pastries in the shop. Our conversations regarding the Shun family were few and far between. More often, silence enveloped us. The sunlight, the aroma of books, the fragrance of tea, and that pot of moonlight quietly thriving on the windowsill surrounded us. On occasion, she would set her book down, gazing out at the pedestrians traversing the old street, or at the pot of moonlight, softly murmuring, "This is what life truly is." I would refill her cup with hot tea, responding with a simple "MHM," before immersing myself once more in the leisurely tome in my hands or engaging in a virtual realm on my tablet, vanquishing foes with ease. The antique clock mounted on the wall of the bookstore ticked leisurely. The wind rustled through the sycamore trees at the entrance, their leaves whispering softly. A plump orange cat, having become an unofficial member of the bookstore, lay curled up on the carpet at my feet, basking in the sun and purring blissfully. I reached down to scratch its fluffy chin, and the cat responded with a satisfied meow, rolling over to reveal its soft belly. On the windowsill, the leaves of the moonlight plant were thick and lush, shimmering with a faint purple halo under the sun, while tender red shoots peeked out from the edges. I lifted the warm latte at hand and took a sip, the sweet aroma of the froth mingling with the rich bitterness of the coffee on my tongue. Outside the window, the sunlight was just right.
The end.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and liking to show your support. Until we meet again for the next story.